Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Shovel Knight King of Cards. In the last one we largely wrapped up Burger Bluffs, now all we have left is the Joustus Hall's main duels here and the Joustus Judge. I heard there's a fancy shop nearby, but where is it? I can't be sartorially superior from that clad in couture. Speaking of superiority, care to play Joustus? I'm quite good. Let's enjoy a round or two before I continue pacing about this cabin unimpressed. Can you tell that it's been an NPC who's been around since the original game? So like I said last time, the main focus here is going to be a bunch of the holes we've seen already in this area from Traveling Champion adjacent fights, on top of Cascade arrows, which can actively lead to a lot of troublesome setups depending on where the holes get placed across these fights, but depending on what cards you've gotten from Cheshire or otherwise, you'll probably have a good enough deck that you can win even if it takes a couple of tries, and once again, like I've mentioned already earlier in LP, I really recommend if you're about to lose, maybe just return to the title screen so you don't lose a potentially important card to your setup so you don't have to spend the money at Chester. After a long day in the factory, this breathtaking panorama, it's all the fulfillment I need. I suppose you're here for a match, eh? The gears of life never stop turning even for a moment. You gotta enjoy it. This duel largely depends on conveyor arrows, which given the small area of effect, you really gotta plan around to potentially either lock opponent cards into place, or to potentially use to your advantage should you use a Cascade card to counter them. Potentially getting yourself into a place where you need to actively force a no more valid moves win is also pretty useful in some cases, admittedly. Also worth noting for the remainder of the LP, really, I actively do just spend whatever leftover money I have at Chester to get mystery cards. As at this point, it's all that's left for me to really spend money on to begin with, and I am getting every card in this LP. So, might as well start doing it sooner rather than later. Although getting slightly ahead of myself, I don't actively show the entire grind for getting all the cards, only because it's playing the same half of a stage over and over again. Up here we have an empty desk, or do we?
Oh, you are fans? I'm a fan of Joustus. Sorry, we'll battle. Yes, you a fan of battle? Are you light enough? Can you teeter? Let's teeter to the edge.
Also worth noting, if you're trying to find a specific card from an NPC that you're dueling, and it just doesn't seem to be in their deck or doesn't want to show up, you can also largely get cards like that from mystery packs. In fact, there's some you can only get from mystery packs, like the Dancer from Shovel of Hope, who's a card I actually especially really like if you manage to get her, because I think she's got both a double arrow, a bomb arrow, and the switch mechanic, so she can be pretty useful in blocking off corners and other things like that. Good boys, is everyone awake now? I beat the other Joustus players. I'm top dog here. Bark, 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 bark. It seems that the Spinwolves are ready to play Joustus. Our champion this time around is the Wolves. Urgh. I'd argue the Spinwolves are probably the easiest champion in the game, if only because their ability is one that can actively sometimes just be beneficial for you. What they'll do is target two panels, one of which is usually a panel with a gem on it. The one that has a larger amount of clouds around it will then become a whole panel because they dig it away, and the gem will fall through, landing on a random other panel on the field. Depending on how that goes, you might get yourself into a gem sweep on complete accident, honestly. I like fighting them a lot. Bark, bark, bark.
Good pups. Wanna go for a walk? If you want to go for a ride, just bite my cape when I jump up.
Bark, bark, bark. 3 main areas in 3 Joustus Halls completed, just one more Joustus Judge, and I'm assuming this journey will be over. Although on that note, now that I think about it, the Joustus crowns out to be a giant competition with 2 of them actively traveling with us. How is anyone else meant to compete? 110 merit medals, let's see. A bird is a bard with a beak or a bill who sings a song softly or shrilly at will. We bards study folktales and struggle through college, yet no one throws bottles at birds to my knowledge. Bard, I'm starting to sense the further in we get, the more personal these limerics are getting, and I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. At this point, though, I'm getting the next Vigor upgrade from Mom, which is going to put us over 100, which notably, if you've done everything in the LP we have up to this point, I believe, right there you should unlock the achievement for getting a fully upgraded King Knight. Oh, hello there, Spectre Knight. Joustus, a game for children. I know more of it than your tiny brain can possibly fathom. Are you foolish enough to challenge me? Why, yes we are, but first I gotta go buy myself a cheat, cause, yeah. Spectre Knight's Joustus duel is one of the hardest in the game, honestly, if only because his entire area is laid out in such a way that it requires use of the grave card archetype I talked about way back when. I think at this point, barring getting some from mystery packs, the only one you can really easily get is Phantom Striker's card from the man himself. The reason for this is basically every gem when you're playing against Spectre Knight is actively placed in a graveyard tile. So you need to push things from the active field into the graveyard to actively get a win here. With that said, Cascade cards can help a good bit here, because unless he doesn't get his grave tiles pretty early in, you can have a pretty good win ahead of yourself there. Worth noting, though, he actually has quite a few unique cards for you to get. He's got his own card for one thing, but he's also got the card for Lewin and Reese. If you've played Spectre Torment, you know exactly why he would have those. Not helping matters in that specific duel is that there's only 5 playable tiles by default. Although, again, a grave card can go a little bit to extend how long it'll take before an eventual round over due to no more available spaces at that point. With that said, we've now done everything we can before tackling our third Joustus Judge, so let's head after King Birder himself, all the way on the far right of the map at our final level of the game, right? What do you mean it doesn't say finale? Welcome to the King's Roost. The main mechanic for King's Roost is pretty immediately apparent. It's the blocks on screen. The way they work is they start in a set location and then move along infinitely in a chain, stopping here and again when the chain is sort of brought to a full link, effectively. The best way to describe this level is entering a room and then waiting a second to see how the blocks move before actively planning your platforming. You can rush through it, but doing so might make you fall into a bottomless pit or down into a prior room and need to redo some progress. What is kind of interesting about this specific Joustus Judge stage is that it's arguably the easiest of the 3. If only because, for one thing, you're a little more primed for a stage of this length at this point in the game. But also, it actively only has the one mechanic. There's nothing they throw in on top of that to remix with and actively make a more complicated level design. Mind you, they start just throwing enough of these blocks at you at once in different ways where they themselves can act as several different mechanics at once in a way, I suppose, where it's, okay, these ones move on a path and you have to go from one to one. These ones actively act as hazards or your shoulder dashable wall. So they do a little bit more with this than I guess some other mechanics in that regard. I guess you could also maybe say the birders themselves are the mechanic. These enemies we've seen since the original campaign that are big send-ups to Bubbles from Zelda 2. This section of the level probably has the easiest to miss merit medal, not because you'll literally not see it, but because if you kill the birders too quickly, your main platform to actually reach them goes bye-bye. I think technically using a vertical dash from the battery brigandine I'm wearing on top of the fire saber's like little elevation can actively help you get it still, but it's a little bit tight if you don't have a birder nearby. Thankfully, they spawn one right next to it, but if you're a little too hasty, you never know. When it comes to being easy to overlook, the third merit medal in this level is the easiest to miss, if only because if you're looking at the wrong part of the screen, it's very easy just to completely miss that it's there. Thankfully, it's not exactly hard to grab once you actively notice it. Honestly, kind of surprised they don't really ever do a version of hiding a merit medal where it kind of blends into the background a little more, like, oh yeah, you got like a group of flowers here. The merit medal is among it and looks very similar to the flowers. I'm glad they didn't do that, but I've played enough games where they would do something like that that I'm glad they didn't. Because some games get devious with stuff like that. There it is right there on the bottom of the screen. If you're not actively looking down there because you're too focused on actively trying to see where you're controlling King Knight, it's very easy to miss that. With that said, grabbing it is as easy as following the blocks into that area, so overall, pretty easy to grab. The scariest section of this level on the whole, I think, is the screen after this, which is the last section with the moving blocks, because they actively add a layer to the blocks that's not really present elsewhere, in that there's actively 3 states for the blocks to be in movement, stopping place 1, and stopping place 2. And stopping place 1 and 2 are in a pattern that it's easy to jump from one to the next of, yes. But if you're not expecting it, it's very easy to get in your own head and just miss a jump and get a little ahead of yourself and end up falling in the pit because of that. Effectively, they try to stop a block near the bottom of the screen and then directly in the middle of the screen. Getting used to that offset there is the real challenge here, and if you're not really expecting it, it's very easy to get in your own head. With that said, I'm glad in basically every section of this level, they give you a safe place you can observe the block pattern from to try and observe it from. Because if they didn't do that, I think this level would be like 3 or 4 times harder than it actively is. With that said, definitely an embarrassing place to screw up is right about here. Oopsie. If that isn't a first playthrough of a Shovel Knight game distilled right there. You get past all the super complicated stuff pretty easily on your first try, then mess up on something simple, and then you're flustered, and then you start screwing up on the complicated stuff beforehand, and don't get back to where you were for sometimes upwards of 20 minutes, and then you just get frustrated. That was my first playthrough of Shovel of Hope in 2 specific cases that come to mind. Actually, no, 3. One of the Tower of Fate stages for one. But also my first playthrough of Mole Knight stage was that, as well as Propeller Knight specifically. Alright, there's our second checkpoint, so it's time for our final Joustus Judge. Make sure you heal up, though, in case you're low on health, because they always place Turkey nearby the boss fights.
What took you so long, King Knight? I've been expecting you. You're every bit as flashy as I've heard.
How did you know my name precedes me, I see? Excellent. And you must be...
That's right. It is I, the final Joustus Judge, Lord and High Ruler of the Birder Bluffs, King Birder.
Oh, well, hello there. Greetings, fellow king. Let the final match begin. Where shall we all sit?
Sit. You need only kneel before your new master, King Birder, and prepare for an eternity of servitude.
King Birder is dangerous but easy, if that makes sense, because he does have attacks where he acts like a birder and he'll bounce lasers all across the screen, but when he's not actively trying to flee from you, he's doing stuff to the room. Namely, he'll either do a weirdly familiar looking flight formation like that, move blocks around the room in various fashions, while also making the room narrower and narrower as the health goes down. Due to these factors, this is a fight that's a lot less dangerous if you do a lot more damage more quickly than otherwise, because you can outpace his narrowing of the room and things like that if you actively get a lot of hits in really quick using like the dueling glove or things like that. He's not the hardest, but he can definitely be overwhelming, I think is the overall best way to put it. The Rat Bombardier and Fire Saber can be useful here, but don't underestimate the Gyro Boots to try and bounce off the blocks either. On top of that, my armor's vertical charge directly up into him can also go a long way. By front and fin, it's a fake! A decoy!
King Birder was merely an enchanted birder, but then who's the final Joustus Judge?
Oh, ho, 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 my poor feathered puppet. Ah, well, the ruse was great fun while it lasted.
King Birder was a deception! What's the meaning of this? Who are you, witch?
You may all pledge your loyalty now, for it is none other than I, the Enchantress. The Joustus Crown was a contest of my own devising. I wanted the kings, the Joustus Judges, lured into one place, ready to be controlled.
No, treachery!
While the world obsesses over a silly card game, I've been amassing an invincible order of knights.
A rogue recruiting evil knight in our kingdoms? Disastrous!
I was going to control your minds, but the Joustus Crown has already afforded my plans ample time. Can't you see? I've already won. Soon you'll feel the might of a true tyrant. Toodaloo, imbeciles! We must return and warn the others! What'll become of our kingdoms?
What a strange dream.
Oh, and new friends are here. Are they the ones that rescued me? Parmacious Pufferfish, the birder can still talk? Wait, are they talking about me? Can they hear me? The Enchantress gave me a voice. It was her voice before, but now I have my own voice, and I've overheard her plans. Maybe I could help?
King Knight, this birder has endured great hardship for his knowledge. Please, listen to him.
Hop on my back, friend. I'll tell you all I know about the Enchantress. Perhaps, with luck, we'll prevail.
You didn't think we weren't getting a Tower of Fate segment, did you? And so, the innocent King Birder shared his kingly misgivings about the Enchantress's evil scheme. King Knight failed to grasp the gravity of the situation. You're back. Our cohorts just told us the awful news. It's all true. The Joustus Crown was a sham. The Enchantress distracted us all. We're doomed. Everyone settle down. Your attention, please. Hope is not yet lost. The Enchantress fooled us all. But unfortunately for her, she also brought us together.
Our captain's right. We must unify and fight for what we cherish. My kingdom, my Griffiths. My friends at the Trouble Pond and our majestic king.
For birders and all those without a voice, I may have just joined, but your angle is true.
It's been quite a journey, but our goal's now clear. We can't let the Enchantress win. Now who's with me? I'll fly us close to the Tower of Fate ahead. This is it, King Knight. We're all dependent on you. We're nearing the end here, but I will say, in the case you haven't yet for some reason, I'd recommend putting whatever money you have at the moment into maxing out your health if you haven't yet, because while the final levels are definitely shorter than the Tower of Fate stages were back in the other campaigns, they can definitely still bring the pain, and being as prepared for that as you can is a very good plan.
Woo! I'm bouncing off the walls. I love being a birder.
I think that's actually implied to be the same birder that bounced around the area back in Spectre of Torment, but I'm not exactly sure about that. Chronology has always been a little bit weird for me in this campaign, because the placement of the spin-offs and Plague of Shadows and Shovel of Hope are pretty easy for me, but how this and Spectre of Torment kind of bounce back and forth has always just kind of been weird to my head. Because I think it's implied that, like, you go after King Knight first in Spectre of Torment, then this happens. Meanwhile, Spectre Knight's going to collect all the other Order of No Quarter members for Spectre of Torment. I love this background so much. You can even see the build-ups of the areas from Spectre of Torment's hub opening. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 15, we start the endgame crawl. See you guys then.